Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 3, Episode 10.
Welcome back, friends, for our safest episode so far. Today I'm sitting with someone I gotta admit I'm very proud to be a friend of. Once a tattooer at the late Brand New Tattoo, now the owner of his own studio, Krueger Tattoo, the man himself, Aaron Krueger. What's up, dude?
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I say safest because we're kind of in the midst of, we're not quarantined anymore, but we're out of it. However, like if you're not wearing masks and protecting yourself, especially in an industry like yours, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, huh?
Exactly.
So
safe as possible.
So how can people follow and or contact you if they listen to this episode and they want to like know more?
So Instagram is a good one, at Krueger Tattoo. You can find us on our website, KruegerTattoo.com. We currently have a Facebook page, also at Krueger Tattoo. That's something that we might phase out over the years to come. I don't know. But as far as Facebook, Instagram, website, that's probably the best way to do it.
And Krueger is Krueger.
Nailed it. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm kind of on that same boat with the Facebook thing. I mean, it depends on what your industry is, right? Like if you sell hot tubs for a living, like your Instagram's probably irrelevant, but your Facebook is super important because of the demographic that's on it.
Exactly.
You know, but for like art, you know what I mean?
Well,
or like for younger people, which is what I primarily sell to, like Instagram's a better platform.
It's a little bogus. Like for us, the only category they give us is tattooing and piercing, which there's tattoo shops, there's piercing shops, but there's not always both. So a lot of people contact us about getting a piercing, and then we got to tell them we don't do that. And it seems like a big bummer. The other thing is when I do videos attached to my still shots in Instagram, it doesn't share them to our Facebook page. So half the stuff actually shares. So it's kind of just like, why are we even on here? You know what I mean? It's just so much easier to have like the phone number, the email accessible through the website, the Instagram. So like I said, as of right now, we're on Facebook, but I could kind of see that getting phased out at some point.
Yeah. For myself, I have a couple different pages, right? So I own Passion Board Shop. That's like my main gig, although I am transitioning to spending a lot of time doing this.
Yeah.
So Instagram is the main platform for myself, which is at Passion Board Shop. And then for the show, it's at passion_pod. And then I keep everything all on the same website, which is just passionboardshop.com.
Nice.
And then you can like listen to all the different episodes. You can see all the merch and like trying to spend a lot of time doing that. But one of the hard things is people don't understand. A lot of times people come into my store and they're like, man, how have I not heard of you? I'm like, well, for one, you're sleeping. I've been around for a while.
Wake up, dude.
Yeah, but
right.
There's so many platforms. Like it's really hard to be like really active and doing it well on all of the platforms. I kind of think for myself, it's better to just like pick one and then try to like focus on keeping that up to a certain grade rather than like half-assing all the different ones.
I totally agree. That's kind of my whole thought process. And Instagram, it's like, I joke like Instagram is all pictures and like, I don't want to have to read a ton if I don't have to. So it's like that, that instant gratification of scrolling through videos and photos. I like that. That makes me happy. And Facebook, I feel like, is a lot of like writing about everything that's wrong in the world. And that's kind of a bummer. So like I try and stay off Facebook as much as I can.
Yeah, and you got to look at like what the business tool is, right? For you, like you're trying to promote your artwork. Not that you already have like a long list of clients anyways, but still like ultimately what you want to show people is your art. For me, what I want to show people are the products I sell and the community that I built. You don't need a lot of words to that.
No.
It's more the visual that matters anyways.
Yeah, soft goods, hard goods, here's what it looks like. Come get it. You know, like that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about drawing, right? Because everyone starts drawing, I would assume, before they get into tattooing. I doodle all the time with my kids. Like we always sit down and, you know, like especially my older daughter, Lily, she's super into drawing like houses with the little sun and smiley face and whatever. And we got like a million of those on the fridge.
Heck yeah.
When did you start doodling?
If I had to put like a age on it, it was probably somewhere around like 3 years old. At an early age, my parents found out that I think there was like this Fisher-Price fold-out lap desk, and I think it actually was gifted to my sister, but I just kind of like took it over. And they figured out that if they kind of prop me up. Like I remember I would keep my back against the couch and I'd put that up and they'd put like a show or a movie on. And I think at the time my mom was like a secretary at this like law office or something. So like there was always the scrap, back when there was like those dot matrix printers where you had to like detach the edges of the paper. Well, she would bring home a bunch of scratch paper and like I would just sit there for hours. Like they would come like check on me and make sure I was okay because I was just like chilling, drawing. And that was kind of the start. I was just kind of happy doodling, drawing with a movie on. And it's kind of funny because if you fast forward, I'm just tattooing and drawing all day with movies on here. So it's like I'm kind of just doing the same thing I've been doing, just in a different way.
So you must have been pretty active in like art classes and stuff in school. Like
Yes,
when
sir.
did you start doing a little bit more than just like little doodles here and there as a kid?
What's funny is like I grew up in Marshfield and a lot of I don't know if it's Wisconsin wide or what, but it was called the Sail Art Program. And the Sail Art Program was like for people who went a little bit above and beyond in the art class. And you could get into that elementary school, and then when you hit middle school, you did like almost like AP or honors art or whatever. Well, what's kind of funny is I was like scared there was a test you had to take. You had to go in for like 3-4 hours and they put you through this like test, which sounded scary. So I never tested for it till I was in 6th grade because I was afraid that I wasn't going to make it in the Sail Art Program. And finally, I don't know if I decided or my parents pushed me to do it, but I did it and they're like, oh yeah, you're in it. And then I took honors classes in middle school and high school. And I think high school I eventually took all of the ones we had. So then I took them as like an independent study, which was basically the art teacher would say, hey, what do you want to do? I want to do this project. And she's like, all right, do it. And when it's done, show me, and then we'll come up with something else to do. So like, from there I was kind of in the advanced stuff. But early on I was kind of too scared to be tested on it for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in America in general, we kind of like teach people everything's such a competition that like I think a lot of kids don't have the confidence built up behind that, because even like trying out for teams is like a big thing for a lot of kids.
Absolutely.
So I think the best teachers are the ones that give you that kind of freedom. So I had this teacher, Al Willett, shout out to him. I don't know if he listens to the show. I ran into him not that long ago, but he was my print graphics teacher.
Yes.
And what was really cool about it was he just told me like, hey, if you're always working on something, I guess I don't care what you work on.
Exactly.
Which was really cool because then I ended up doing way more than what you normally would be expected to do for the class. I mean, there was like a handful of little things, like we had to make a notepad and we had to make a whatever.
Sure.
But in general, you just kind of like just let me do it. And I absolutely loved that. So I was always working on stuff. And it like, I think I learned way, way more from that rather than having to do like specifics. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, it's like you go in, I don't know if they play music in art class.
Yeah, usually,
Yeah, like that was awesome. A period in the day, whether it was the start off the day, the middle of the day, or the end of the day, where you came and you listened to music and you just did art. Like that was such a nice break in the day. That was my favorite.
So when you turned 18 then, what did you do? Did you start tattooing people in basements? Did you go to college? Like, what did that look like?
I turned 18. I got my first tattoo the day after I turned 18, only because I think the tattoo shop schedule was like mine, where they were closed Sunday and Monday. So my birthday was on a Monday, so I had to schedule it for the Tuesday because the shop just wasn't open. So I got tattooed, I think, one a month for 3 months, and my mom was like, whoa, calm down. And I was like, okay, yeah. But I tried to get into tattooing right away when I was 18. I didn't want to go to college. The only person that was really good in the area, I approached him for apprenticeship. He said no, very nicely. I said, well, what's up? And he said, well, if I teach you to do what I do, you're just taking money out of my pocket. Like, I pretty much got this area on lockdown. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So he was like, the money's in Flash. You got to design Flash. And at the time it was. But if I became a Flash artist, I don't think it would be so good right now. That might have been the case at the time. But my mom never got a chance to go to college, so she wanted my sister and I to go. So to kind of appease her, I applied to one school, kind of like half-assed, like, okay, I probably won't get in, and that's cool. I can do something else. Well, I got in to UW Stout. No, bad juju on them. They're a great school. When in doubt, go
to Stout, man.
Great school. That's right. You can't get in there. Go to Eau Claire. No, that's that's what we said at Stout. So I went there for 4 years and dropped out to take the chance on tattooing. I had landed an apprenticeship. In my mind, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I either hopped on that train and saw where it went or watch it go by. And worst case scenario, I could always give the University of Wisconsin more money and they would let me in. So I just bailed, which did not go over well with my mom. I kind of tried to have like what I thought was like a rational discussion about like I should leave school and start tattooing, which, yeah, that's crazy. If my kids said, well, okay, maybe I'd see it differently with my kids. But, so they're like, you're going to finish school, then you can do whatever you want. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I just went back and like was, totally a jerk about it and just stopped going to class and started apprenticing. So then I filled out. They got a letter in the mail that said, hey, your kid's kicked out of school. And that's tough, from a parent perspective. But looking back and where I am now, it was the right decision. But yeah, that was kind of tough. Like my mom wasn't too happy and stuff like that. But now they carry my business card and hand it out to people and stuff like that. So it's super cool. But at the time, it was kind of I needed to decide what my future was going to be. And so I chose where I am today, and I would do it again and again and again.
I mean, I think it is really important to look at like what your parents, what advice they can give you from their life experience. But it is also important to recognize that the world is a very, very quickly evolving place.
Absolutely.
And your experience isn't going to be the same as theirs. So you have to kind of take their advice with some perspective. Be like, well, okay, yeah, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, right, you kind of needed a college degree to make a living. Like you kind of did.
Yes. Yeah.
But in today's world, all of a sudden they're teaching young kids about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So maybe entrepreneurship is a viable option.
Right.
Even when I opened my store, it's not like my parents like told me not to, but they certainly were like, I don't understand. Why would you leave a job getting paid what you're paying with that kind of stability to open up a skateboard shop? Like, why would you do that?
It seems like highly irrational.
Right. But, you have like, it is really important, I think, to recognize when opportunity, like I pride myself with this anyways in business. I think what I'm really good at, well, I'm good at a few things, so like I'll pat myself on the back. But one thing I'm really good at is recognizing when the right opportunities arise, because opportunities come up constantly. Everyone hits you up, especially if you're good at what you do, to like be a partner on this or invest in this or want to do whatever. You constantly get those. But it's about recognizing when the right opportunity comes up, because if it is the right opportunity, that window is going to be small. And you're going to regret it so bad when you miss that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, even with like you opening your own shop, right?
Yes.
Like the timing ended up being perfect for you.
Yeah, it worked out. Which even that, man, like, everyone, yes, once you open your own business, it is great. I love it. I would do it over and over and over again. But is it scary to do that? Yeah, it's scary. You're like, I want to do it, but is it going to work? And like, if you would have talked to me anytime before I started the studio, I was the number one advocate in town that was like, this town has too many tattoo shops. It's oversaturated. Pretty soon there's not going to be enough work to go around for everyone, da-da-da-da-da. So then I'm like, oh my God, I kind of want to open my own studio. That's been the game plan kind of since I was apprenticing. So the number one thing was like sitting down, even with my own thoughts, saying, okay, like, can you do this? Is this going to work? Are you just a hypocrite? Like, what's up? Like, where are we at? And I just felt that the way that Mindy and I wanted to approach this, I felt like it was needed and maybe not. Like, there's tons and tons of good shops in the area, but we just wanted to make it more personal. And we did it, and luckily people are into it, and it worked out. But it was scary, man. Jumping off that ledge, that's something for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a special type of person. It really does. I have people constantly ask me or tell me like, man, I wish I worked for myself. And, at first I told a lot of people, I'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, you could.
Yeah.
And you certainly can. But now I've recognized a little bit over time that you have to have like a certain type of quality about yourself to do it. Not
right.
that everyone is very capable. So it's not about that. It's not like I'm smarter or more capable than anybody else.
Right.
But so few people are actually driven like they think they are.
Exactly.
Almost everybody has to have a schedule for them to go to work. They don't otherwise do it, But when you work for yourself, that obviously doesn't work that way. You don't feel any of the benefits of any of your work until way down the line. Same thing, you don't feel any of the negatives till way down the line.
Right.
So like you have to consciously keep yourself in check and probably work a lot more than 40 hours a week, certainly the first like couple years anyways,
Yes.
to kind of put yourself in a good position. And then once you're going, then it feels pretty good because you're no longer scared about what's going to happen every day. You kind of experienced most of the problems that are going to come up. You know what your general revenue stream is.
Well, and from owning our business, like, yeah, man, stuff comes up, little curveballs. We were talking about product availability, stuff like that. Like this right here, COVID, like what? I didn't think like, hey, now I got a plan next year to be closed for 2 months and not make an income. Okay. Yeah. Now we'll, no, I didn't plan on any of that. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. That was a much larger, faster curveball than I think I'm hoping ever happens again in my career. 'Cause that was a pretty unexpected problem.
Right.
But in general, when you open, those first few weeks, especially every day, it is like you have a huge checklist of things you have to get done that you have no idea how to do them. And you don't have anyone to ask. It's just kind of like, okay, I got to do all this. And it's funny because when you look back on it, if you had to do a lot of those things again, you're like, well, a lot of that stuff was actually quick and easy, but it's intimidating when you don't really know anything about it going into it. You know what I mean? It's easier if you just have a boss that like trains you in.
Right.
But you don't when you work for yourself.
When they're like, hey, we're doing this. And you're like, okay, you're inventing things as you go and, trying to make sure it's the right decision and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I feel like ego too is a little bit of a thing because when you work for somebody else, looking at like tattooing or something, you have that backing of the shop you work at. It's not just you. People just go to that shop and people respect the shop because everyone else that's there.
Yep.
So you don't question yourself as much. I'm sure you do initially when you become a tattooer, but after a while you're like, well, I'm a part of this. Okay, I feel good about where I'm at.
It's like a skate crew. You're a part of a crew, man. They got your back, Absolutely. And then you go solo. Well, yeah, you're in the streets by yourself. You got no one to back you up. It's like, whoa, okay. I gotta watch my P's and Q's here a little bit. Yeah.
Yep, the self-confidence has to build up. Okay, so this will be a couple little easy ones that I think are fun. So me and you, let's share it. What was what was the first tattoo that you ever got?
So the first tattoo I ever got is a Celtic armband on my left arm. Now you got to remember, Chris, this was the 90s, okay? So this is not as, this was really cool back in the day. 18 in high school, you either got your Celtic armband, your tribal, or your barbed wire. That was the big thing. So I got the Celtic armband. It has no significance. Like, I'm not Celtic in my heritage at all. It was I went into the shop and I picked it off the wall and yep, that's awesome. That's as much thought as went into it. Now, the cool story behind that is it's since been lost within the sleeve of other stuff, but the tattoo that didn't have a whole lot of meaning and significance gained significance when my dad turned about, I think it was like 53, mid-50s, something like that. He got his first tattoo. He was kind of joking because when I was in school, spring break, I didn't go anywhere or do anything. I went and got tattooed. So he was like, what are you doing on your spring break? I said, well, I'm going to go get tattooed, obviously. And he's like, well, I'll come with you and I'll get a tattoo. And I was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? He's like, no. I was like, all right, I'm scheduling it right now. So he came and he got his first tattoo was the exact same Celtic armband that I have. So it's both of our first tattoos and it's a matching tattoo I have with my dad. So what started off as just like, I'm dumb and 18 and want to get tattooed is now a matching tattoo I have with my dad. So that is legit.
That actually is sick. I always tell people like who don't have any tattoos, they're like, I don't know what I'm going to want forever. I'm like, dude, everyone I talk to, save for even, I guess this story a little bit not now, but in general, like everyone's first tattoo is the one they like the least.
Exactly.
Because whatever. Like,
it's a popping off point. Like,
you want to look cool or whatever. So my first tattoo, I have the insides of my biceps.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, it was fucking lame. And, and it's in like old English like lettering because I thought lettering looked sick, which you can, I guess.
Right.
And it says never forget on it. And it refers to like, at least my thought process was, I need to always remember everything that like everyone did for me to help me get to where I am in my life.
Sure, that's a good perspective.
Which was like, good. Like the thought was cool. Like, and I don't regret it. Like it's cool.
I thought maybe it was like a black label tattoo.
That
you know what I mean?
Sick.
Like the elephant, the Econoline.
Yeah. But the thing that sucked about it was I went to college and nobody has tattoos hardly, right? You remember when you're 18 because I got mine right when I was 18. Like you're that cool dude that has a tattoo.
Oh yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Then everybody asked me what it said and what it mean, and I'm like, oh my god,
they got to stop and read it every time.
Yeah, it started to make me just like hate it, and now I'm so glad it's covered. And now I tell everybody when they're like, yeah, I'm gonna get my first tattoo, and I ask them what it is, and it seems like it's text all the time. And
There's a lot of lettering. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I tell people all the time, like, here's one thing you probably didn't think of, but if you only have one, everyone's gonna ask you about it, and if it's lettering, you're gonna actually have to explain the whole thing.
Yep.
If you just get like a fish, you can just say that my buddy liked fishing. Like you don't have to tell him anything about
fish.
it. Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
So that one sucked. My most recent one. So I'll ask you that one next.
Okay.
My most recent one, I got my left knee tattooed.
Oh,
so I'm like slowly working up. I know I did both my knees. So my last tattoos were my chest and then both knees.
Brutal.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
So I got my left knee tattoo and I got this big old jack-o'-lantern with like a skull in the middle.
I like that.
Yeah, and like so I have it's like pothos leaves around it. Like that's why it's like viney. I got really into houseplants in the last year and I planted some pumpkins. And
I feel you. I always fought the houseplant thing, and like the last 3-4 years, I'm all about it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I genuinely do. I have a lot of them, so I think it does help. But I genuinely do think my air quality like feels a little cleaner and it smells nicer.
Kind of a sense of peace. And I know that if like Kyle from the shop heard me say this now, he'd be like, wow. Because I was always like, dude, plants, get the plants out of here, man. And now I'm like, I like plants. Plants are cool. So like, a little hypocritical.
But yeah, I mean, I just like the way it looks, you know? And I've always liked Halloween and stuff. And that's the funny part is when you're looking into your first tattoo, a lot of times you either pick flash or in general, like you really overthink it, I kind of think.
Dude,
versus like
absolutely.
At this point, like the more I have, I'm like, hey, I like the way this looks, and I end up liking it way more as time goes by anyways, because it's more about the artwork than it is anything else 100%. For me at this point. What was your most recent tattoo? Did you get tattooed anytime?
Yeah, dude. My dog on actually half my knee, not as like dead set knee like yours is, but like inner thigh, knee, top shin. That's our dog. And he's got a red flannel Wisconsin style shirt on, and he's got a Wisconsin gold pendant chain. He looks kind of hood. He's got a flip up hat with his pink monkey toy on it. He's pretty hood. So that was actually, I went to Las Vegas back in October. I got tattooed by DJ Tambi, actually. I don't know if you watch the Ink Master shows. He won back-to-back seasons, and then he was like a judge, so that's super cool, right? So I didn't like watch any of those seasons that he was on. I think I've seen the first 3 or 4, and then I think we maybe cut off our cable or I don't know, whatever reason I lost touch with it. So like, apparently on the show, he's kind of a dick. And, so I told a couple people, I'm going to get tattooed in October. And they're like, oh man, that guy's kind of a dick. And I was like, oh no, but I was like, well, whatever. Like I'm already in it, So I went, he's like, super nice dude, super nice, super sweet, super awesome tattooer. Wound up hanging out for like 6 hours while he tattooed me. All fine and good, nothing to worry about. But like when I came in, he was kind of like, I think he was referencing things from the show. And like I said, I haven't watched it. So there's like this kind of weirdness, and I thought maybe he just thought I was like this kind of slower cognitive guy from Wisconsin, you know what I mean? And I was like, what the? So like halfway through the tattoo, I'm like, somehow it came up. And I was like, dude, just so you know, like I haven't seen any of the shows at Ink Master that you've been on. I just like got suggested to follow you on Instagram. I thought your stuff was awesome. I think your stories are hilarious. So like I noticed you like to do tattoos of dogs. So here I am. And he was like, oh, well, that's really cool. That's actually super cool. Like everyone comes in because of the show. You just came in because you like my artwork. I was like, yeah. And then it was like, I felt like a bit of a weight was lifted off of him. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And then he just did his thing. So I don't know, it was kind of interesting.
I've seen that a couple times just with like some interviews. Because I've had some people of like, not famous people, but so like local famous, right? Like I've had people who are at like 50 to 100,000 followers on Instagram, which is like a lot more than me.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
And so I've sat down with them, and there always is that like weird little, I don't even want to say barrier, because it's not that hard to break. It's almost like there's like a sheet in between the two of you, and all you got to do is figure out like wear the little creases to just move that shit over because it's like they're all just normal people.
Yeah,
you know what
dude,
I mean?
There's so many similarities. You know, we talked about our families and like a lot of things were similar, how we met our wives and tattooing's the common denominator, so we're talking about that. And yeah, it was like, I don't know, it wasn't a big deal at all. I had some nerves, like there's one thing, like you said, dude's got however many hundreds of thousand followers, he's on TV, da da da. And I'm like, what am I walking into? And I came in and he was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? You Aaron? You're my appointment. He came over, shook my hand. You tattoo, right? I was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, cool. This is what I drew for you. And it was just like off and running, like no stress at all. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, we talked about it off mic a little bit about like meeting celebrities or whatever, whether it's musicians or other things. And I always think it's funny that, in my opinion, the easiest thing you could possibly do is the really quick, nice interaction. Just to be polite to people.
Yes.
And like, even if you're too busy to really give them your time, just be polite, shake their hand or whatever and say, well, not now, I guess not shaking hands, but in general.
Wave hi.
Yeah,
right.
But in general, just like make eye contact, thank them for whatever. Exactly. And even if you got to go, just say, hey, sorry, I don't have time to really chat, but it's nice to meet you.
Just
and that
honest.
leaves it just leaves like a good impression on people. It's funny when you meet people that they did so much hard work to get to where they are, and then they're just blowing it by being jerks. It's like kind of crazy. It always kind of blows my mind. So, all right, some tattoos like Celtic, armbands. A lot of people are like not that into. So, especially younger people, and I guess I'll say what I think is the most common tattoo. But what's the most common tattoo that you get asked to do? My guess would be a little infinity emblem. That seems like the biggest thing these days.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's kind of wacky. Tattoos can be a little bit like fashion trends where over the years, trends kind of come and go. If you would have asked me the same thing back in 2005, like I apprenticed 2005 to 2007, been on my own 07 to present. And back in the day, it was the kanji symbol, the armbands, so the lower back tattoo, not the tramp stamp, but it was actually the lower back tattoo, which we did lower back tattoos. And then they kind of got that slang, whale tail, top hat, whatever. But then they went away and they came back and people came to the shop and were asking for tramp stamps. And we're like, dude, this is, you're asking for it by the kind of nasty title. And like we explained that to like 4 or 5 people. And then after that, it was like, okay, I guess it's the tramp stamp. But nowadays, I would say the infinity symbol is pretty common. I've definitely done some over the last 4 or 5 years, quite a few. Nature's coming back around. A lot of trees and like animals and stuff like that, which is cool. Yeah, I would say that's probably the most common stuff. Infinity symbol is definitely up there, though. That's for sure. Yeah.
So, what's the most like out there tattoo of recent memory you did?
Dude, probably on my buddy Chris. Shout out to Chris. He got we refer to it as the slut cow tattoo. It's like a slutty cow. Like if you took a cow and made it into like a pinup kind of trailer trashy. I don't know how I think I made one on a flash sheet. And then he saw it and was like, dude, I got to have a version of that. And I was like, yeah, man, that's so like crazy. And then recently, within the last year or two, he was in and got I don't know what we called it. It was like an alien slut. Like it was like the same thing, like a trashy alien chick, kind of like what you would take as like an alien trailer trashy. Like, yeah, dude, so crazy. But I love it because it's like, when do you do that? When do you have people ask you for that? So I would say that's definitely up there in the crazier, just out there tattoos for sure. And he's got both of them on him. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that one. I don't remember what that dude's name is. I've met him a bunch of times in town. Who has that like crazy looking Mr. Peanut? Who's that dude who has that?
Oh my gosh.
You know who I'm talking about though? Have you seen that one? It's grayscale and he's like looks like an old man. And...
Yeah, I can't think of who that is.
Well, whatever.
But yeah.
But those tattoos are my favorite ones just because they're memorable. And it's like, dude, I'm jealous that you have that because I can't get it now. I would have never thought to get it in the first place. But now that I saw you have it, I'm like, damn, I wish I would have had that.
It's kind of that like instant, like when you see someone who has a cool t-shirt and you're like, oh man, I want that t-shirt. But you can't really do that with tattoos. I mean, you could, but there's going to be some issues with that. Even finding an artist to copy someone's tattoo, but it's just like, yeah, you get that instant like, oh, that's cool. I wish I would have thought of that.
I think we got time for one more question before the next music break. So I want to ask this one because I got into art a lot in the last year, and I paint like constantly. And I finally bought one of those iPad Pros, and I draw on there all the time, which is, I like both mediums, like depending on what I want to do. I like the part of what I want to do with my art. So I got to this weird part of my art, and I'm sure you're way past that, but all my friends want original paintings from me, which is tight. I'm just like stoked that people want my artwork because I was just like doing it because I was like depressed and stuff. Yeah. And I paint these like dumb little smiley creatures and stuff all the time. I
see them. They're cool. It reminds me of back in the day, like the Toy Machine artwork. You know what I mean? Kind of the little monstery dudes and stuff like that. Yeah. No, it's cool, man. For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I paint those all the time and all my friends want them, but it's getting to a point where I constantly have people like waiting to buy one from me. And I'm like, well, I can't keep only charging you like $20-$30 for a painting because it takes me a long time. But I understand also that like I'm not trying to charge them $150 for something, even if it takes me 10 hours, just because I'm like, but that's what I kind of have to, not that much, but I have to charge more for original paintings if people are commissioning them because I don't have time otherwise to do them.
Right.
So, but I want to have like a different option for like how people can get my art because mostly it's like kids that want it, right? It's like the kids that look up to me that come through the shop. So that's why I bought the iPad because I was like, well, now I could do some art, like some of my little creatures and stuff I could do digitally, and then I could just like make stickers and stuff. Dude, and then people who want it can have it and only pay like $2 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Because it's hard to put a value to the amount of time you put in, but then still make it affordable because in the end, people are trying to support you. So it's like, you want like back to time. Time is the currency you can never get back. So it's like, yeah, you play this game over the quarantine. I did a couple of graphic design commissions. And when it came down to price, I just like hemmed and hawed because I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to charge you. Like, yes, I do this or I used to do it. And like, I'm only doing it now because I have no income. But like, I don't know what to charge you, you know? And like, if I were doing this tattoo prep and as a tattoo and what I charge hourly, you don't want to pay for that. So like trying to find like a common number to throw at them, you know, that was really tough too.
Yeah, it's always tough with your friends, especially because you know they're trying to do you a favor, but they don't. Like I had one friend, I sold him a painting. It was maybe an 11 by 14 or something.
Nice.
But it was original painting. It took me a while, right?
Yeah.
And I only charged him like $75 or something for it. And he's like, oh, you must be making good money doing this. And I'm like, I mean, no. I was like, I'm like 12 hours at least into this painting.
Yeah.
So like hourly, that's like $5 an hour or something. He's like, oh.
It's like, you know, not minimum wage.
Right. But you know, in his mind, at least without thinking about it, he's like, oh, I'm paying you good money for this.
Right.
But on my end, I'm like, I'm kind of helping you out in a way. So like that's like it's the sensitive part, right? Because
there's
you're like
give and take.
Yeah, you want it to be worth both people's time. So I've definitely like now told a couple people like, look, it takes me a long period of time.
Right.
So like if you want something specific, you got to remember like I don't have a lot of free time. So if you're willing to just like kick it and buy something that I was painting anyways, then I'll sell it to you for pretty cheap. But like if you want me to specifically paint you something that's going to be on this size and in this time frame, like I gotta charge you more because I don't like have a lot of free time.
Exactly.
But anyways, what I was getting at was like inspiration. So my inspiration, like going into my paintings, was I figured out after a while that a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram and stuff, like artists, it's not necessarily because they're like technically skilled at all in art. Like that is something I didn't realize for a long time. I thought you had to be really, really skilled at it.
Right.
And like the more I don't know, I guess for what I enjoy, which ultimately that's all that matters. If your clients or your consumers enjoy your stuff, it really doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
I found that like the stuff I really like is something that's unique that catches my eye. It doesn't have to necessarily be good. So my favorite artist, or one of my favorite artists these days, his name's Lucas Buford. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
I'm not, but I'll look him up for sure.
But the first thing that I ever saw of him, I was in Japan, and apparently he knows this shop owner of, he knows this dude named Bugs who owns this shop called The Mint out in Osaka. So shout out to him. That dude's sick. Nice. But I was there, and there was like a big photo. I think it was somebody skateboarding, and on the photo, that he had painted like this just goofy little like thing over the top of the photo, and it just
Yeah.
like interacted. And I saw it, and I was like, "That's so sick!"
Yeah.
I haven't really seen people do that before. I was super into it.
Like a instant collab.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
like when I started painting, I was painting all these little creatures and stuff, and I figured out with me, I was like, oh, I don't like painting backgrounds for some reason. Like I just like creating these little characters or whatever. And then I started painting on photos, and now that tends to be what I paint all the time.
Yeah.
And it's very reminiscent of like what that dude does. But he's sick. And like technically speaking, I don't think like it would be that incredibly hard to recreate some of his stuff. I mean, like the colors maybe, but like I realized that it's not about how incredibly technical it is. It's about like whether or not people like it, which a lot of times has to be with it just being unique.
It's all about style.
Right.
And luckily, everyone's into different stuff, so stuff will catch your eye that it won't other people. And that's what it's all about.
Well, especially because the internet, everyone sees everything now, right?
Yeah.
So what I was getting at anyways, talked about myself a whole bunch right there. But
no, that's cool. That's cool.
where like the inspiration for your art, because you aren't just like the typical just flash stuff. You make like your stuff is pretty unique and kind of like I feel like it covers a lot more than a lot of tattoo artists does.
Awesome, man. Well, that's the name of the game. Actually, to toss it back to you, your like what you're doing, because I follow you on Instagram, so I've been seeing the stuff you do. Like, it's original, but it also instantly made sense to me because it's like it's that skateboard culture, and it's almost like a graffiti like toss up. Like a toss up over, you know what I mean? Like you tag over tags and stuff like that. But it's like, when I saw what you were doing, I was like, dude, that's dope. Like, that's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, backgrounds and stuff like that, you don't necessarily have to do it if you're doing it over something over the top of it. And it's totally, like, as far as like the people I follow, I don't see that hardly at all. So it's like really original. So that was, refreshing to see that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But, back to me, I guess. So, okay. When it comes to my style, Mindy and I, or probably just Mindy, Mindy's my wife, made up this word called grillustrative, okay? So it's like graphic design illustrative tattooing. Because for me, I definitely bring that graphic design background. I definitely bring like a element of illustrative tattooing and kind of like a neo-traditional, or like not new school, but kind of more new school traditional to my stuff. But at the same time, like you said, which I really appreciate that you noticed that the spectrum's kind of broad, because that's what I go for. When I was taught to tattoo, the guy that taught me, shout out to Steve in Milwaukee, the guy that taught me was like, I'm going to pretty much show you how to do a bunch of stuff except for portraits, because I don't do that, because I think his exact words were like, if someone sneezes or coughs during the tattoo, like all of a sudden grandma has like a wonky eye or something, and it's too high pressure and I just don't want to do it anymore. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. But he said, the idea as an artist is like, you kind of are able to do just a bunch of styles, and you're kind of, open to all different styles and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool. So like really, and with me, it's the challenge. Like, you need to know your limits, obviously. And when I'm consulting with people, I'll say, hey, you brought in these reference photos and they're super dope. However, that's like photorealism. So have you like looked at my stuff, like my portfolios, and like, do you like what you see? Because I'm going to take this as inspiration and do your project, but how I would do it. And if you're cool with that, then let's go. But if not, like, I'm probably not the right dude for you. But it all stems from, like I said, that grillustrative terminology is kind of, copyright Krueger Tattoo Studio, is kind of, what we kind of go with, sums it up the best that I can.
Okay, so the skateboarding industry has changed quite a bit since I was a little kid. Before, when I was growing up, there was like CCS. I don't know if you remember that. There's this little like
absolutely.
mail order thing that you circled and whatever.
I had it. Yeah.
So there was either that, so you mail ordered stuff, or you went to Zoomies, because Zoomies is like this big company that's at every mall.
Yep.
Or maybe you went to your core shop, but if you did, they probably didn't have much. You know what I mean? It just was kind of like a different time frame. And now people all the time ask me like, oh, like, don't you hate Zoomies? And I'm like, well, no, because I really don't lose that much business to them anyways, I don't think.
Right.
It's more like competing with online. And right now, the problem within the industry is people are so like cutthroat to each other instead of trying to grow like where profits are and stuff, all these companies realize through the internet that they can connect directly with their clientele, and it eliminates the middleman, which would be my shop.
Right.
So online is like what's really difficult to try to compete with. The world's kind of changed that way. When I was growing up, you skated what like the people around you skated, like what the older dudes were skating. That was what was cool. So that's what you wanted. But now with Instagram and everything, kids are identifying with whatever brands, and it's making it like kind of a challenge for small shops like me, because I'm like, well, I can't have the inventory that the internet has. Like that's obviously not possible.
Right.
And I can't even really price it the same way as the internet has. So thankfully, like I have a really strong following in Eau Claire. People are like incredibly cool here. So like I'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. But that has changed how the industry has worked as a whole. It's made shops kind of like have to focus on being more community driven rather than like worrying about the products themselves, because the products are kind of irrelevant. It's more about like people shop at my store because they like the store, not necessarily what's even in it. I try to order what they want, but but they buy from me kind of regardless. So what about like with tattooing? You said, you know, a long time ago it was like all flash stuff. How has the industry kind of changed since you apprenticed to now?
Man, big time. So when I apprenticed, and I mean, there's always going to be flash shops and there's going to be custom shops and stuff like that. But as far as like, you know, getting a custom tattoo or going to a flash shop, I think more so the equipment. Even in like, I've been tattooing for 13 years now since March. And from when I started to what's going on now, it's vastly different. You know, it was kind of 100% coil tattoo machines, and then rotary came through, and then like a pen style rotary, and then Cheyenne came through with this like safety cartridge system with one machine that's kind of the drive, and you select all these cartridges and it's safer and less vibration and clean and all this stuff. All that happened in the last 13 years. Now the big thing is like these pen style rotary machines have like battery packs, so you're completely wireless and can tattoo for 5 to 6 hours at a time with no wires, no foot pedals, no power supplies, no nothing, which is like insane. If you would have told me that I could do that 13 years ago, I would have been like, whoa, that's amazing, you know? So, and even pigments, inks, aftercare, bandages, I mean, little things like ink caps. Like I got these cool, they're called Hive ink caps, and they're attached 4 at a time. You can click them together like Legos, and they like hold together, and you can expand them depending on how many ink caps you want to set out. Just everything, man. Like everything is different from 13 years ago. It's absolutely crazy.
I think in entrepreneurship in particular, it's really important to look at like what opportunities are now available versus like it's important to have a mentor, right? Like you can definitely learn from the history of anything. That's always important to look at like what worked in the past.
Know the roots, know where you came from.
Absolutely. Yeah. But realistically, if you want to be relevant or if you want to grow beyond whoever it is that you looked up to in the past, you know, you have different opportunities. The world isn't the same place, and it's 100%. Changing constantly. So it's important to recognize what opportunities are available to you now, what resources are available to you now that weren't before. How can you utilize them? I was talking about Instagram, right? Yep. Like that's a huge platform that I use for my show, for my shop and whatever. That didn't exist for skateboard shops when I was growing up. That wasn't a thing. It was just about like your street cred or whatever.
Order the video. Huge. You know, on CCS.
Right.
And sometimes it was a dud. And you spent money doing it, but like you'd get it and it was like, oh. But then you heard your homie was like, dude, you got to watch the, whatever, Jamie Thomas and, whatever video. And it was like, oh, man. And then, you had to have that video. But like you said, the iPad Pro. Dude, yeah, like when I started, I carried a backpack and like a toolbox. And my toolbox had like acrylic paints and tape and masking tape and brushes and pencils and erasers and templates and rulers and protractors and pencils, pens, markers, you know what I mean? All this stuff. And now, yeah, dude, I carry an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil. And I've got paints, colors, templates, stencils. I can do layers like I would with tracing paper. But the benefit is, like you said, you can print them. You print them, send the file to the printer, to stickers or business cards, or like, it's so crazy to be able to do that now. To be able to size something by pinch zooming with your fingers. It's like, I feel like Tony Stark every time, like I'm Iron Man every time I'm designing a tattoo. I'm like, this is amazing. And it adds a level of fun to it. And, as a disclaimer, there is nothing wrong with tattooing with coils, with drawing with colored pencils, the old school traditional stuff. It can be done. It can be done well. People do it all the time. But for me, I love staying current with like the technology and stuff like that. It's just like, it's super fun. And anytime you can work smarter instead of harder, I mean, that's awesome.
Well, and the other avenues are always available.
Yeah.
If you feel like it,
if
you're at your cabin or I don't know, whatever, if you're out at somebody's cabin or whatever,
right,
and you want to be out in the woods and you're like, you know what? Like, I want to put this iPad away, and you want to just like do some grayscale pencil drawings. It's not like that's not available to you.
Get out the, the recycled paper. I love the sketch pads that are like the gray paper.
Yeah.
So, I forget what the gray tone. It's been too long. But like you can use like white color pencils for your highlights and that, and it shows up. Yeah, dude, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it comes down to like using the whatever things that are at your fingertips, right?
Yep.
Like different resources are available. And if you're choosing not to use them, whether you're stubborn or whatever, well, I mean, it's just you that's missing out. You know, it's not like anyone else is going to be like, oh, well, nobody cares. You're just missing out. So if you're doing it out of your own pride or whatever, then okay, but like I like to look at every opportunity that arises and say, well, is there a way I can grow from this? Is there something I can get from this? Again, it comes down to like not every opportunity is what's right.
Right.
The iPad Pro may not be right for everybody,
sure,
but for you, it sounds like it's made things a whole lot easier. So I'm sure you're glad you decided to try using it.
It's just fun to me. I don't know.
I like it a lot too. I could have changed everything.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean?
Like,
I could draw something and be like,
fun.
I don't like these eyeballs.
Yeah.
Delete the layer.
Take that layer off. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's tight. Okay, what is something that most people, and it has to be something I don't know either, what's something that most people don't know about you?
Man, let's take it back to like middle school, high school years. Well, like, okay, I know you know the one, but like what people probably don't know about me is like, I think when you see someone who's covered in tattoos, you think like, that's a pretty cool dude or that's a tough guy. So if you would have known me with like my bowl cut, kind of mushroom cut hair, back in the day, and like I was big into yo-yoing. Really into yo-yos, like ball bearing, weighted, so they would sleep, and I was into yo-yo tricks. My dad and I and friends were on a ping pong team on the YMCA. Like we were in this ping pong club, and like my parents had a ping pong table in their basement that my friends and I would play on, and like we were into ping pong, like super hardcore.
I actually love ping pong too, dude. I played that a ton in college. Yeah.
Right. And then probably I always joke with my wife that this is how I landed her, that I played the trumpet and the ping pong and the yo-yo. It was just too much. Like she couldn't take it. I just had to land my wife. But I played trumpet from 5th grade to 11th grade. I was in marching band, pep band, and concert band. Through being in band, I wound up playing a Festival of Lights parade at Disney. I wound up going to the Bahamas on a trip. Did some cool stuff. Played in like some state games for the University of Wisconsin. Just like some crazy opportunities that I wouldn't have had unless I like played the trumpet, which I think still is kind of like pretty dorky. And then the thing that I was going to say that because we've hung out or whatever, but like I more or less concentrate on like BMX and mountain bike this day. But dude, I was a rollerblader. I was a rollerblader from like the early to mid 90s into the 2000s. Like I probably rollerbladed for like 12 years. And like, yes, the fruit booters, and we have our nicknames, but I was into the handrails, the gaps, the big spins, parking lot to parking lot gaps, like the big, like ballsy stuff that I kind of went away from it for quite a while, came back to it, which we were talking about, and then went away from it again. Biking is just safer for me, as weird as that sounds. Like you can throw a bike, you can throw a skateboard. Rollerblades are on you no matter what. And I've reached that age of 38 where I busted them out not too long ago, man. And I went to the little skate park by Carson, and like I was there for 10 minutes, and I like caught up on the coping on this grind. I fell backwards. I thought I broke my tailbone. I was like, okay, done. I have no business being on these anymore. And I still have them. I haven't parted with them yet, but they're just like in my garden shed, just collecting dust. But those are probably the things you didn't know about me.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the episode. I always ask this on every show, so you probably had something in mind at this point. But I want you to share an experience that you're really grateful you had, but only happened because you chose to pursue your passion, as in this case is for tattooing.
I think because I would never have this opportunity unless I was tattooing. I'm going to say I've got a client, Dina, that I did a double mastectomy cover-up tattoo on. And, she battled with cancer, obviously got the double mastectomy. She came to me in a consult and said, hey, I want to do this, but I only want you to do it. And I said, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never done this before, but skin is skin, and I think I can do it. And if you trust me to take this on, I will do it. But I want you to know that going into it, this is the deal. And she said, yep, I want you to do it. And I put this forget-me-not flowers, fiddle-headed ferns, lotuses, and it stretches from like her lower left hip. It goes up diagonally up to the top of her shoulder on the right side. And it is this crazy, huge, colorful, I don't know how many sessions. It was like maybe like 50, 60 hours. It was like the equivalent of taking a sleeve, but putting it across the body. And, all said and done, like she thanked me. She knitted us a blanket that we keep at the foot of our bed in the winter, that when it gets cold, we pull this blanket up that she handmade for us. And she just said, when I look in the mirror now, I don't see the scars. I see something pretty. And like, I'm getting a little emotional. And, for me, that's awesome. I would not have been able to give that to someone if I wouldn't do what I do.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's funny because you don't it's not like you would have ever thought about that when you got into tattooing. No. It's not you're like, well, one day I'm going to do something like that. It's those things that just kind of pop up.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That was rad. Okay, so lessons learned. I kind of switched it. I used to ask people to give advice, and I realized a lot of people want to give similar advice, which is totally fine, but I don't want to repeat it.
Yeah,
I don't want to repeat it. So I changed it up a little bit, and now instead I ask you, what is a lesson that you learned throughout this journey so far? Whether there's a story attached to it or not, but what's a lesson that you learned that you think was actually really integral to your success? Okay,
well, that is surprisingly easy for me. So the thing that for me that really helped me out was just being positive. Positivity goes a long way, and I'm a big believer in the laws of attraction. You think about what you bring about, you manifest, what you want. You concentrate positively on what you have as if you've already had it. And through that brings you, through the laws of attraction, you attract what you want in life. And you can't do it without being positive or without being grateful. So you have to maintain a level of positivity, be grateful for what you have. You might not have what you want yet, but be grateful and it'll get there. It'll come to you. That was huge. That was so prior to meeting with you today, I went to the chiropractor. I go to the chiropractor every Monday at 9, except for during COVID times. But, keep it right, keep it tight, or keep it loose, whatever you got to do. But an old chiropractor we used to go to, before I opened the studio, I was just on the cusp of opening the studio, and I was scared. I was like, man, I want to do this, but what if it doesn't work? Which is terrible. Only concentrate on the benefits and the positive things. And I said, here you are in your business. You're doing awesome. How the heck did you decide, I'm going to take a jump into this? And he was like, have you ever seen this documentary? And the documentary that I would recommend that everyone go check out is called The Secret. And it talks about the laws of attraction and positivity and, like I said, manifesting what you want in life. And the biggest thing is being grateful for what you have and being positive, and it'll happen. So that was the biggest tool I think that I found, because I downloaded that. I think I found it on iTunes. It was like $10, And I downloaded that and I threw it on like over and over and over and over again in the mornings when I would draw for my tattoos. And that just like hyper, like, like laser focus on what I wanted, how I wanted to get there, when I wanted to get there. And I just, attracted everything I wanted and, just kind of lived my life by that.
Powerful, and I so much agree. I constantly hear people like complain about this, complain about that, and I'm like, well, the thing is like complaining about it isn't getting you any steps closer to what you want. I know that's easy to do. I try to for myself when I'm feeling kind of down and feeling kind of negative.
And it's not easy to do.
No, yeah, I try to take myself out of like any mindset of getting stuff done then. If I'm like in that mood, I got to go recharge and just do something different. Because otherwise I'm going to infect the people around me with like my problems and whatever. I got to go do something else and then come back to it with a positive mental attitude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's huge.
All right. So do you have any last words before we hit your outro song? Those are pretty good ones.
I feel like we hit on good stuff. I guess just a shout out to my family, wife and kids, my mom and dad, sister. Without all their support in that, I wouldn't be where I am today. Maybe the crew of homies that I still ride with, Patrick, David, Mike, Rolando, we're old and we're still doing it. And that's kind of cool. We kind of had a resurgence into BMX the last year or two. And it's nice to kind of get back to it.
It's always important to have things outside of your career, that bring you a little bit of joy.
Right.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.